Did anything big happen this weekend? Let's find out next.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olber. Please support the show by following on your preferred audio platform, and you can watch, subscribe, and leave a comment on YouTube. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are lifelong fans taking our passion into a discussion with big one, you, on all things Cubs. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bet if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. Well, welcome in. Happy Monday. And it is finally over. Cody Bellinger, the Cody Bellinger saga. Will Cody Bellinger sign with the Cubs? Is it a Ricketts thing? Is it a Jed thing? Is it a Bellinger thing? Is it a Boris thing? Is this ever going to happen? Are the Cubs serious about 2024? Is this going to be a team that could actually win the division? All those questions got answered for you at about 1:15 a.m. Sunday morning from Jeff Passan. I am solo today. Matt will be back probably earlier this week. Something came up for him. He'll be back shortly. What a night. So let me just take you through. Just bear with me for a bit. So typically at 1:15 a.m., I am sound asleep. I don't stay up that late. I really don't. I'm not an early, I don't go to bed early typically, but usually, between 11:30 and 12:30, somewhere in that ballpark. But I had fallen asleep. This is a little embarrassing, but I'll just share it. I had fallen asleep alone Saturday night, just hanging out, no sports on, was just watching TV. I fell asleep from about 7 to maybe 8:45, something like that. And so I had a lot of energy. I wasn't really tired. So I was just kind of watching a TV show in my room, getting ready to shut the laptop down and go to bed. And I was like, let me just refresh Twitter one more time. Why not? And boom, a passing bomb breaks. Cody Bellinger to the Cubs, 3 years, $80 million. I was able to come on. Like I said, I had a good amount of energy. It was going to be a long night for me regardless. So I came on, did a quick 10-minute recap, and now we're here. So, before we get into what this means for the Cubbies and now what does this team look like, let's just talk about the deal itself, because like the Imanaga deal, it's an interesting one. On paper, it's 3 years, $80 million. That's for Cody Bellinger. In a worst case scenario, Cody Bellinger knows that he has a 3-year, $80 million deal. But really, he has an opt-out after years 1 and after years 2. And then after year 3, he's a free agent. So for Bellinger, this was a big win, in my opinion. I think it's pretty obvious that the 5, 6, 7-year deals around $200 million, they just weren't there for him. And so what this does is it gives him 3 years, 80, and he gets 2 cracks at having a great season before free agency, and then could enter free agency through the opt-out process and try again to get that long-term deal, and still in the interim getting paid a high amount of money. Where it gets a little tricky, and I looked this up, I think what it is now is the Cubs are going to owe him like $26.5 million for this season. And then if he plays well and he opts out, it becomes $30 million, and then they'll get taxed for that, or they'll get, the $4 million will go on the 2024 payroll. So it's a little complicated in terms of tax purposes. We'll get to in a later segment. Well, okay, what does this mean for the Cubs? Could they still add more? Will they go over the tax threshold? That's important to know, because really they have to plan for the fact that they're going to be taxed or accounted for $30 million for Bellinger, not taxed, because they're not over the first threshold yet. It's the wrong term, but so basically $30 million this year for Bellinger, $30 million next year if he opts in. And then if he opts in for a third year, which would mean probably something didn't go really well for him, then it's just $20 million. The fascinating part of this contract is, if Cody Bellinger hits the ball really well, Let's say you get the 2023 Cody Bellinger. He's going to opt out and you're only going to have him for 1 year. But that means your team's going to be really good, most likely, if he has that type of season. And what this allows the Cubs to do. So from Bellinger's perspective, I think it's a really good deal. He gets to pocket a big load, big bunch of money, and now, he also gets to probably enter free agency in the next year or two. Why is this a good deal for the Cubs and Jed Hoyer? It's pretty easy to understand. With the opt-outs in there, it's most likely just a 1-2 year commitment, at worst 3 years. You now get a full another year to see what PCA can do, to see what maybe a Canario can do, to see what an Owen Casey can do, so you know where you stand. Right now, these prospects and young players are very exciting, but if you went into the 2024 season relying on those guys every day, you'd be taking a risk to not having a really good season. Now, what you were able to do is shore up 2024, and we're going to talk about that coming up, but you shore up 2024, you shore up the floor of this team. You're basically bringing back a very similar team with some additions on the margins and, of course, the manager. And now you get a nice no-rush look at PCA. He's going to come up at some point. Carter Hawkins even said so. It's just probably not going to be on opening day. You get to watch the young guys develop. You could see, okay, you know what? We really don't need Cody Bellinger. We don't need anybody else going forward. This is going to be good starting in 25. Or, you know what, there's some holes here. Even if Bellinger opts out, we got to go get another major free agent. We got to go figure this thing out. It's basically, it buys time for Jed with his young farm system and keeps the Cubs very competitive. And in my opinion, the favorites now to win the National League Central. So overall, it feels like a win-win situation for both sides. I, for one, am very happy that this gets done and we could stop talking about it and start talking about baseball. I'm sure Matt will have a graphic, early this week. But really what this does for us now is, you look around the diamond. Left field's filled by Ian Happ. Center field now, Cody Bellinger. Right field, Seiya Suzuki. Third base is either going to be Christopher Morel or a platoon of Nick Madrigal and Miles Mastroboni, most likely. Shortstop, Dansby Swanson. Second base is Nico Horner. First base right now is Michael Busch. Catcher is Yan Gomes. And then really, DH will either be Christopher Morel if he doesn't get the third base job, or that's your one open spot if Christopher Morel does win the third base job. So really, there's only one spot left to fill. Now, what Bellinger does bring, though, from a baseball perspective, is a lot more flexibility and a lot more depth. Because let's say Michael Busch doesn't hit well out of the gates and he's not ready to hit, has a similar run like Mervis did last year. Well, then you could do exactly what you did last year. You could shift Bellinger over to first. If Talkman's doing, what he did last year, maybe he goes to center field. But PCA, and Carter Hawkins even said so, is going to have an impact on this team. Maybe PCA is just absolutely raking at AAA to start the year. He comes in, he takes over center. That pushes Bellinger to first. And even if Busch is hitting, that pushes Busch to DH. There's a lot of different lineup combinations now that you have at your disposal with bringing Bellinger back. And of course, you have a manager that you feel very confident in that's going to be able to help sort that out and make it the most efficient as possible. So I'm very excited. I'm actually a little bit more excited than I thought I was going to be with this because of the nature of the deal. At our live show early in the week, I was hoping for something like this. I said 2 years 50 with a couple of opt-outs, and it went 3 years 80 with a couple of opt-outs, or I should say one opt-out in my situation because it was only a 2-year deal that I was suggesting. But I'm a little bit happier than I thought I was going to be. I thought I would kind of I was expecting this to happen. I really expected Bellinger to be a Cub at some point. I thought it would be, kind of anticlimactic when it happened, but maybe it was the late Saturday night, early Sunday morning announcement. Maybe it was the deal. Whatever it was got me really excited. And I just look around this team now and I don't see, a ton of weaknesses offensively. This gives the Cubs, a higher ceiling and higher floor. They need pop, and you just feel good about the offense. It just feels solidified, and it takes the pressure off a guy like Michael Busch. It takes the pressure off a guy like PCA. So now they can kind of wait in the shadows for their turn. But Overall, you got to give Jed Hoyer credit. We were on him. It felt overly calculated, but he got the job done. And to be honest with you, you got to give Bellinger and Boris credit in their way too. I really think this deal, in sports, it's always black and white, winner, loser. But in this case, I really do feel like both sides won. If I'm Cody Bellinger, my head hits the pillow in Mesa, Arizona tonight, and I'm like, wow, if I don't hit, and these guys don't think like that, but if I hit 240 next year, I got another 30 million coming my way. I have 2 years, 60 million guaranteed, even if I hit a 160 over the next 2 years. But if I hit the way I know I'm capable of hitting, I'm going to get to re-enter free agency once again. And like I said, the Cubs get their guy. And to me, getting this done and even going up to the $30 million total does show me and tell me that this team does take winning in 2024 seriously, because this is a win now move for the Cubs. This is a 2024 move for the Chicago Cubs. They love PCA. They love what they have in the minor leagues. They did this so they can go out and compete and try and find a way to win this division. And I'm really happy that they did that. Coming up next, we're going to talk about if and how this Cubs team is going to win the division. And after the Bellinger move, where do they stand among the odds makers? But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live, same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. I got to tell you, I just watched the Suns-Lakers game on a Sunday afternoon. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Devin Booker, Anthony Davis, legends everywhere. And I must say, the NBA, it's it doesn't drive me like it used to. But the closer you get to playoff time, you see the intensity changing. And today I saw a little bit more high intensity. I like what I saw. My big bet right now would be Oklahoma City. I think they're going to get home court in the 1 seat. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are back here on Locked On Cubs. Just a quick reminder, if you are an audio listener of ours, we'll be posting our audio just a little bit later, mid-afternoon than usual on Monday, but then it'll be back to normal going forward. All right, let's talk about the Cubs now. Let's talk about where this team sits, because the reason I want to do this is that now, for the first time, this team feels complete. This feels like the Cubs. Doing projections before they signed Bellinger just felt like you're rating a team that's not there. And so now we could talk about this team and where I personally think they're going to be. So most of the sports books have them at 84.5 wins over under. I think that's a pretty fair number. FanDuel has the Cubs at slight underdogs to win the division in favor of the Cardinals, but has the Cubs at 84.5 as well. Some other books have the Cubs as favored. It's very close. Here is my big reminder to you about this team, because I know what we're going to get in the comments, right? We're going to get, hey, we just brought back the same team, and the same team won 83 games. Bellinger, Imanaga instead of Stroman. Okay, we added Neris. We added Almonte. We traded for Bush. We did some other things, but, we were an 83-win team last year. Did we do enough? The big reminder is all the underlying 2023 numbers said that this was not an 83-win team. This was an 88, 89, potentially 90-win team. Now, the counter to that is, yes, Sam, but that's why it was such a big missed opportunity, because that team's not going to play to an 88, 89 win team, because to do that, you need Justin Steele to be in the Cy Young conversation for most of the year. You need Cody Bellinger to be one of the 3 or 4 best hitters for half the season like he was last year. You need Yan Gomes to have a career year offensively. So that's the counter. The counter is, yes, on paper, they played out like an 88, 89 win team, but they didn't get the job done. And there's going to be some natural regression. But we could go back and forth all day on that. I could come back and say, hey, I think Jameson Tyone is going to be much better than he was last year, right? I think Dansby Swanson had a really unlucky first half of the season. I think he's going to be much better offensively. Seiya Suzuki, you're going to get a full year out of him, mentally and physically healthy, hopefully. So, let's see what happens with him. You added Michael Bush. First base was a complete and utter nightmare until Bellinger switched over there. Maybe Michael Bush shores that up. Imanaga may be better than Stroman. There's a lot of different avenues to go. I think 84.5 is a pretty fair number. I would take the over. Last year, I got the over at 77.5. That was a piece of cake. 84.5. I think this Cubs team, if they could just play exactly to the level that they did last year, this will be a high 80s win team that will win this division because Craig Counsell will ultimately be the difference. He will be the guy that finds a way. When you look up, we'll say, oh, this Cubs team was right around 87 wins, but they somehow got to 91 because that's what he does. I think that this Cubs team, on talent, it's about an 85 win team, but I think they improved on the margins, especially with their manager and some other moves. They need to find a way to win close games, especially early in the year, get some confidence going, stay healthy. And I think this team will accomplish what it needs to accomplish. Now, a lot of questions for me on Twitter the last couple of days, or not last couple, the last day. Hey, what now? Can we still add Chapman? Can we still add Montgomery? And the payroll thing's confusing because I get different numbers everywhere I look, but it sounds like the Cubs are, I think, maybe like 12 million now, maybe a little bit less. They're right around the tax threshold. I think they have a little bit left in order to add at the deadline. Ricketts said he came out and said on Friday that they're probably not going to go over, right? So in order to get Montgomery or Chapman, they would have to go over the tax. By all indication, Ricketts doesn't want to do that, at least not before the season. So I think entertaining that would be, would be a waste of our time. I would love to be pleasantly surprised. I mean, if they were able to go out and get Matt Chapman on a 1-2 year deal, heck, that'd be amazing. It shifts Morel to DH and your whole team's settled. But I think you'd have to go over the tax for that. Now, I know what everyone's going to say, and I agree they should be able to, but they haven't really proven that they want to. I do believe that this deal did put the Cubs back up to 7th overall in payroll. It's really 8th because they're ahead of the Dodgers, but the Dodgers had Shohei Ohtani's $70 million deal, basically all deferred. So really they're about 7th, 8th, which isn't terrible. You'd like it to be a little higher. Hopefully next year it jumps into the top 5 or 6. Does this team have enough to win a World Series? I don't know the answer to that. When you look at the roster compared to the Braves and Dodgers, of course, it looks completely different. But I think they have enough to win this division. And if they can get to October with Craig Counsell and some good pitching, maybe they add at the deadline, maybe Cade Horton comes up out of nowhere. It could be a really fun summer. My excitement has increased. You could hear it in my voice. I wanted this to happen. I always thought it was going to happen. Now this team feels complete. Spring training, we're not even in March yet. Bellinger has plenty of time to get himself back into a groove, and I'm very happy about this. So coming up next, before we wrap up, there was baseball that was played this weekend, and we're going to talk about it here next. But first, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, kind of like Cody Bellinger in center for the Northsiders. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. We're back here, and to close the show, let's talk a little bit about the baseball, the hardball that was being played this weekend for the Cubbies. They played 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. White Sox Giants Padres, I think it was. I watched the whole game Friday, most of Saturday and Sunday. I checked out a little bit, if I might admit publicly on this program. Spring training, evaluating spring training is always fun because when something goes great, you want to talk about it. When something doesn't go great, you say, well, it was just spring training. There's nothing we could do about it. But you know, I thought I thought the pitching was pretty impressive. Caleb Killian had a nice cameo on Friday. Would like to see about 6, 7 more of those before I hop on that bandwagon. Luke Little pitched. When you watch spring training, you get a really good idea and a good sense of the Cubs' depth overall. They just have a lot of depth. Like even their BC lineups are still very entertaining. Uh, and that was fun to see. My takeaway from this weekend, if I had to take away one little lazy thing, is that I, seeing him, in a batter's box in a spring training game, I'd watch tape and stuff. I could see the hype around Matt Shaw. He just really looks like a hitter, man. He just looks like a guy that is going to rake everywhere he goes. Carter Hawkins made it. And I think Carter Hawkins saw it coming because he said clearly on Friday, he's starting out in Double-A. So please don't even ask those questions. And nor should you, but he can rake, man. I mean, he really could hit. I thought Brennan Davis hitting a home run this weekend was a nice story. I didn't see, I heard he had a couple of defensive miscues, but nice to see that he's still in there fighting. I mean, even if there isn't a spot for him on this ball club, it would be nice for him to increase his value so the Cubs could trade because, what this Bellinger thing does open up to is, this is a very crowded outfield. And, you still have Hap, under contract for a few more years, Suzuki as well. Bellinger will see. But then even if Bellinger leaves, it's probably going to be PCA there. So what does that mean for Canario, Casey, Davis, Alcantara? I usually am the type of person that sticks to, hey, worry about that when it happens. You can never have enough great talent. But if the Cubs do have an early season need, maybe another really top end, a good solid starting pitcher or a bullpen guy, they definitely have the guys to package that and really not lose any stride with their offensive momentum. Do I feel like they're going to do that before the season? Most likely not. But, it looks like you have Steele and Tyone and Hendricks and Imanaga, and then it's up to Wicks and Smiley and Wisniewski and Assad. And it's like, well, if you don't feel great about that, maybe you could sneak in a trade and go get another guy. That would be my choosing, because going into the offseason, I thought they had to bring Bellinger back. I thought, if they were going to miss on Ohtani, and then they needed to go get somebody else offensively, that somebody else ended up being Michael Busch, which, time will tell about how good that was. I thought they had to improve the bullpen. They did that with Neris and Almonte. And then I thought they had to add 2 starters. They added one with Imanaga, and then they haven't added that other one. So that would be that one gap that you'd like to fill. But I also think they might like Jordan Wicks. I think he should be the favorite for the 5th starter spot. He was okay in his debut. Smiley was okay in his, and Assad got roughed up a little bit. So that's kind of how that competition started. But it was really nice to see baseball. And, this Bellinger thing's great. I mean, we don't have to talk about it anymore. We could talk about baseball. And the one thing that you can't measure in dollars and you can't measure in wins, but you could just measure with your eyes and ears, is how badly the team wanted him back. Dansby Swanson, Kyle Hendricks, 2 of the leaders of this ball club, really, you could just tell they were happy that he was back. Bellinger was with the team on Sunday already. He raced there. He wants to be back. It's good for team chemistry. It's good for morale. You want your high-priced players like Dansby Swanson to be happy with who they're playing with. And, he wanted it back. He said it at the Cubs convention. They got Bellinger back. And I think there's now this understanding in the clubhouse, hey, we didn't finish the job last September. And now we got a new manager because of it. And now it's time to go finish the job. And the 2024 Cubs need to be playing postseason baseball. And I think they will. Shout out to the everydayers who are with us all 5 episodes throughout the week. And you can become an everydayer by checking us out each and every weekday. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for Locked On Cubs on YouTube and smash the like button for the algorithm. We're also on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts and streaming on Sirius XM. I'm Sam Olber, and this has been a Cody Bellinger on the Cubs version of Locked On Cubs. Take care, everybody.